I get books. I get lots and lots of books. As you well know, once a month or so, I like to try and thin the pile a little bit and distill it down to the ones I think may be of most interest to people like you. So I've done that today. In just a moment, I'll tell you about some of the new and notable books. Today we're talking about new and notable books, and I will start with Real by Catherine Parks. This is The Surprising Secret to Deeper Relationships. I'll read the back. You can see if it's a fit for something that's of interest to you. All of us long for authentic friendships, but many of us struggle to find them. That's a very common problem. In a world of carefully curated social media and picture-perfect self-projection, might it be that we're distancing ourselves from the very closeness we crave? So it's a book about friendship and a book really meant to fit with the modern world, maybe of interest to you. Next up from Tim Chester, we've got Reforming Joy. Now, subtitle, A Conversation Between Paul, the Reformers, and the Church Today. That at least has to grab your interest. The big question on the back, have you lost your joy? Premise of the book, premise of Galatians, which I think it looks at, is we are meant to be joyful. As Christians, we're meant to have the joy of the Lord. If we are lacking joy, that probably means somehow we've gone wrong in what we believe about God, how we're practicing the Christian faith. So here's a book about discovering or rediscovering joy in the Lord. Next up, Galatians by Mark Johnston. This is part of the Wellwyn commentary series, which I quite enjoy. These are commentaries suitable for pastors who are studying or for people leading Bible studies or just people interested in knowing more about Scripture. It's on Galatians, of course. It's not verse by verse, so it doesn't have, chapter 1, verse 1, chapter 1, verse 2. Rather, it's section by section, and it's written to flow. It's written as really a series of chapters. So you can read it just for general reading. I think you'll find it enjoyable, find it helpful, find it biblical. It comes highly recommended. From Robert Woolgameth, we've got Lies Men Believe. Now, back in 2001, Nancy Lee DeMoss wrote a book called Lies Women Believe. It sold very, very many copies, I think in the hundreds of thousands at least, and been translated all over the world. Very popular book. In God's good providence, Nancy eventually ended up marrying. She married Robert Woolgameth, and he's now written the companion volume for men. So I've read this book. I rather enjoyed it. I think you may as well. A good choice for men to read. From Paul Tripp, we've got Suffering. If you know anything about Paul Tripp's story over the last few years, you know he's suffered quite a lot. So this book is Gospel Hope When Life Doesn't Make Sense. I guess for most of us, at various times, life just doesn't make sense. We're hurting, we're wounded, we're dealing with personal issues, whatever it is, and we're suffering deeply. This book is meant to bring you hope. It's based on his own experience, based on his pastoral experience, and then based, of course, on Scripture. Finally, from Ray Rhodes, we've got one called Susie. This is the life and legacy of Susanna Spurgeon, wife of Charles Spurgeon. So it's a biography of Charles Spurgeon's wife. But what I like about this is it's not just about Charles Spurgeon's wife. It's about Susanna Spurgeon as her own person. And so she's not defined only in her relationship to Charles. Of course, that's an important part of her story. But she herself had an amazing life, an amazing legacy. There was a lot she accomplished, a lot of ministry she ran. And so this book takes a deep look at her and really distinguishes her in some ways from Charles. I really enjoyed it, really found it helpful, and hope to bring a full review of it. So there's some new and notable books. Let me just draw your attention to a couple things. One of the joys of being an author is seeing your books get translated. And my book, Do More Better, has been translated a few times lately. And if this is of interest to you, you can now find it in Italian, you can find it in French, you can find it in Spanish, and it's just come out as well in Portuguese. So that's of interest to you. You can look online, especially on Amazon, and find them there. And I'll see you in about a month with another selection of new and notable books.